What up, though, One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where six guys from around the British Isles get together to talk about anything and everything Detroit Lions. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey, and we welcome you back to the College Football Podcast. Yes, we've had a little hiatus of a couple of weeks while we have a breather after all the senior bowls, the combines, all this, that and the other, as we get all our thoughts into perspective, and we are ready to crack on again. First of all, Ryan, how you been getting on?
Yeah, good, thanks. Like I say, just digesting everything that we've seen so far, because it's been a hectic 2 weeks, I'd say.
Tell me about it. And now that free agency's opened, everything is just going completely and utterly crazy. How's our favourite mascot, Hank, getting on?
He's good, yeah. He's off to vets for first time on Thursday, so I'm sure he's gonna love that, I'm sure.
Oh, one of the most dangerous days of having a dog, the first time taking them to the vets. Well, hopefully it all goes well there for him. So yeah, as I say, this is the college football podcast, but we're going to mix it up a little bit today. We are going to be talking a lot of Lions as well, with it being in free agency, and we're not going to be back on the main podcast until next Monday, so I don't want any of this news to get old. So we're going to go through some of the Lions news first, then we're going to take a look back at the NFL Combine. We did discuss it on the main pod, but we're going to look at some of the players who we thought did well, some who maybe left a little bit to be desired. Then going to take a dive down into the pro day scene. That's going on, the last path on the way to the NFL draft. Players get to go pro days at their own colleges. Last chance to impress any visiting scouts there. And then we're really just going to have a chat about the Lions, about the draft, see where we're feeling at this moment in time. So let's crack on with it. As I say, we're going to get on with the news first. We're going to get on with Lions news here, because as I said, yesterday marked the opening of free agency, and we've had a sleuth of signings. Trayvon Walker came back, a lot of exclusive rights free agents come back there, and then in the 24 hours since we were on the podcast last, we've had two new signings. Well, I say new, one old, one new signings for the Lions. First one we woke up to pretty much this morning. The Detroit Lions finally have their wide receiver. They have signed DJ Chark, the wide receiver from the Jacksonville Jaguars, to a 1-year deal worth approximately $10 million. So we finally have our guy. We have our outside big threat. So he had a good start there. He has had some injury concerns, especially this season just gone, but he is fully healthy now. He is ready to go. He's going to be on a prove-it deal for the year, but those have proved quite good for the Lions so far. I mean, on the surface, it seems like a good deal. In the details, it seems like a good deal. Ryan, what do you make of this move for DJ Chark?
I think for both parties, it's a good move. I think he will have gone out there looking for a multi-year deal, because I think he was in Vegas, meeting with Las Vegas yesterday. Obviously, nothing came of that, so maybe he had to realign his expectations a little bit, coming off that fractured ankle, the surgery that ended his career. But he's only 2 years separated from a Pro Bowl in 2019, had a great year, and he just fits everything we're looking for. He's got that 4 late threes, early 4.4 top end speed. He's got that good 6'3" frame. Like I say, he's slender. He's fairly strong, even though the separation figures aren't always there. So he's what we were looking for. And to get him for just 1 year, some people think, well, it's a lot of this cap, which it might be up to 10 million, but it's to prove it. Like say, we're not giving him anything more than he can't earn. Like say, I imagine there'll be 6-7 guaranteed. Like say, I imagine there'll be some incentives there for how many games he does actually play, banking on that he stays healthy. So I think it's a great deal. It's good for both teams, because like I say, Jacksonville spent a huge amount of money. It was clear that he was the odd man out going into that team, and that he felt like his services were no longer required there. So he's still very young, just I believe 25, so he's got plenty on the clock. If things don't work out this year, or if the player doesn't live up to that 1 year deal, we say our goodbyes, we cut ties, shake hands, say thanks for that, like I say, but there'll be no hard feelings. So there's the future and there's the potential there. If he does perform, he could see an extension with extra caps that we'll have next year. So it works for both parties. Like I said, there's no real commitment there.
Yeah, I mean, you've put it very, very well there for me. I think everyone's ends are covered on this deal. I think for me, obviously you saw what the Jaguars did yesterday. You mentioned there Christian Kirk giving him nearly 80 million. Zay Jones, they've given him 30 million. They've spent over $100 million potentially on two guys going all guns blazing into free agency. Brad Holmes has remained calm. He's remained cool and collected. People are saying, "Oh, you got to spend, got to get these receivers while you can." But he took his time, and he's come out with a deal, like you say, is beneficial for both. I mean, you look at last year, or a lot of one-year prove-it deals knocking round. Some worked out, some didn't, but that's the whole point of them. The guys who didn't work out, they're no longer with the team anymore. They're not affecting our future cap. They're not affecting our future plans. We made a bet on them. It didn't work out. Some, however, and we're going to talk about him basically after this, did work out. They have cashed in, and the Detroit Lions, we have rewarded them amply. So, it works for us, it works for the player, and, I like this deal all told. Just shout out to the guys in the chat. Tim Hutchinson is in there. He says, big day for the Lions. Good signings. Agree with you completely there, Tim. One Pride 40 is in as well. He says Chark is clearly betting on himself. Absolutely. I mean, I think, he's seen that this is a place where you can come, you can play well, earn an opportunity, and make money. So, hopefully we're going to see this with a few more guys coming up soon. And we mentioned there were two. DJ Chark was the new guy on the team, but there's also been one re-signing today as well, one that I really did like. And obviously we are talking about Edge Charles Harris. Now, see, we bought him nearly on June last year, sort of 7-8 months ago he came here. It didn't look like he had a future in the league. We were all a bit underwhelmed by the signing. We didn't know what we were going to get from him, but, these one-year deals you hand out, they give players an opportunity, and he came here and he took his opportunity, and on a defensive line which didn't get a lot of help last year, he really showed out and played well, and he's been rewarded. News came out today that he has been signed to a 2-year deal worth up to 14 million. So, I mean, obviously there's incentives in this deal. So this is less than 7 million a year in guaranteed money as the minimum. The contract isn't out yet, but you would assume it's significantly probably below that, maybe in the 4-5 million a year category. And this was a guy who SpotTrack said his contract next could be nearly $10 million. This seems another one which, depending on the specifics of the deal, but looking at it, from the top side, this looks again another great deal for a guy who's come in, played really well, is going to be a big part for us going forward. He's going to be a big part of the rotation on that edge. This is another deal that I really like for us, and I'm glad we've been able to get it done for, again, a decent amount of money.
Yeah, we haven't heard the contract details yet, but you can already tell that it's not going to be a lot. Like I say, it's going to be 4 or 5 million guaranteed a year. The rest of it will be signing bonuses, let's say incentives for double-digit sacks, things like that. Maybe a Pro Bowl nod, things like that always boost up the contracts. On the face value, people always panic when they see numbers, but it's going to work out to probably very little. It took longer than people thought it would. I feel like he's definitely had other offers. He's considered other offers. He's had things on the table, but he decided actually that the best thing for him is to maybe try find a permanent home somewhere, because he's someone that was going to be bouncing around the league if he'd not found a home in Detroit last year. Like I said, and with the likes of Aquara, who will start next year, maybe on IR, maybe on a healthy scratch, like I say. So he's going to be someone that will start very much as probably one of the depth guys. You can probably put him as edge 1 or 2 on that 4-man front next year. So he's certainly going to be working to pay it off. This isn't going to be someone that's going to come in for the odd snap. He's going to be very heavily used next year, because we know what he's like at rushing the passer. So I'd say it's another one well earned. I'd say it's another body. It takes pressure off the draft. Like I say, when you bring back a player and you sign Chark, like I say, they just make you take a little bit of the edge off, like I say, because you know now that you've got bodies there and you just need some additional draft or someone to help bring them along the way. You don't have to do anything blockbuster. So these are holes that need to fill in. So if you can plug in free agency and build through the draft. That's what we're doing. And this should show Chark that loyalty and good play is rewarded. If he has a season like Charles Harris did last year, then he's going to get a 2-year offer.
Absolutely, and this was one of the big things I had, and I know I was speaking very animatedly in our Discord about it earlier with Taib, who wasn't as enamoured as I was in this re-signing. But it's not just the player that you're re-signing, obviously, here. He's a good player, but what you are doing, as you rightly say there, you're sending out a message that if you're a free agent, maybe not in the best position in the world, but you know that you're a good player and you want to bet on yourself, you can come to Detroit. Dan Campbell will give you the opportunity to get into this team, and if he gives you an opportunity and you fight like hell for it, and you take it, the Lions will reward you. And for me, this is a big statement for us, and we've not done this in a while. We talk about how we're not a destination for free agents, etc. And maybe this isn't going to convince the elite free agents to come here, but those guys on the middle buffer who can be really good, but have not had the chance, let's say, they're going to be able to come here, they're going to be able to play hard, and they're going to be able to bet on themselves and get a deal. And like I say, hopefully this is the same thing that happens with Chark. So with Josh Reynolds, he got a deal as well. The Titans really badly screwed up with him, didn't use him at all. He's come here, he's played well, he's made Goff look like $1 million compared to what he was when he first started this season, and he's got paid. So, that's the culture that we're establishing here now. It doesn't matter who you are, what rank you are, where you've been, you can come here, and the opportunity is there if you want to take it. So, yeah, I love both these deals. I think it's been a good day for us. I think we've been prudent with our money. I'm pretty sure this is about all the cap we've got, and, outside of the stuff we're keeping safe for the draft and what we'll need for reserves in the season. So, remains to be seen what happens with restructures and whatnot. But, so far, I think the business has been prudent, and the business has been good. I was going to leave this for a little bit later when we just got to the end and we're talking about Lions and draft, but the guys in the chat have started about it already. Funky Lions fan has joined us. Thank you as always for joining us in there. One Pride 40 is in there. So, they're talking about now what these signings might mean for our draft strategy, and obviously you have to figure that it may do a little bit here, but One Pride 40 says re-signing Harris means we're drafting Hamilton. Now, me who's the biggest Kyle Hamilton fan in the world, I think this is another one of the stars aligning to the fact that this might be able to happen. But Funky Lions fan says obviously it doesn't hurt the chances, but it doesn't guarantee anything. But for you, these signings we've had, the roster moves we've made, not maybe for your own personal views of the draft, but do you reckon it changes the Lions' priority now that obviously we're paying a lot of money to Harris and a lot of money to a Romeo on the edge? Does it mean safety might be more likely, or are we going to just go best player available and see how the draft falls? Obviously it's only the Jags picking before us, but what they do will impact what we do a lot.
Yeah, I think more what Jacksonville have done in free agency has really changed things, like I say, because they've just gone and paid an offensive tackle, didn't they? Didn't they sign Brandon Scherf, the ex-Washington guy? So people think now, well, maybe they'll look more edge than offensive tackle at one. So for me, what we've done changes wide receiver, not edge. I think now you will not see us taking a receiver at 32. I don't know if you'll see us taking a receiver at 34. I'd say towards the back end of the second, if we trade up into there, the third round, that may be the first time you see a receiver off the board in Detroit now, because Chark fills a hole. But for edge or safety, I don't think this changes anything, like I say, because we know Harris is going to be a strong rotational. Like you say, Okwara will have a slow start to the year. Flowers is gone. So there's still a very glaring hole on one side of that line. So we still may be tempted to go Hutchinson or Thibodeau, whichever one is left on the board, if people are now under the impression that Hutchinson could go one. So, like I say, Hamilton, Tibb, Hutch, all still very much in play. Don't change anything. But it just makes me feel a bit more comfortable knowing that we'll have an experienced guy on the other side of that line to help a rookie. So I feel good. Like I say, I don't think it'll cause anything drastic.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I think the number two, it's just a toss-up at the minute. Depending on what happens, depending on what the Jags do. I don't think we're going to be able to accurately say what they might, but I agree with you. I think receiver's gone in the top 3 picks now. I think with all the young talent we've got here, and Brad Holmes' ability to find wide receiver talent later in the draft, I feel like they are going to aggressively pursue defense now on those first 3 picks, and 66 would be the first time I would expect to see, a receiver in play. Just in terms of maybe a few other deals of the day before we move on, obviously it's been a lot slower today, but I mean Marcus Williams, he's gone 5 years, 70 million to the Ravens. Aaron Rodgers deals come out, he's getting 158 million over the next 3 years. It's very funny. Apparently they incur a 70 million dead cap hit if he retires on them in 2 years, which would be funny. But I mean, it's been a busy day. A lot of teams spending a hell of a lot of money here, and as One Pride says in the chat, at least we aren't handing out gross contracts like some of these teams are, which is agreed. I think our deals on the whole are some of the most sensible that have been made going in free agency. But is there anything that stood out to you today in terms of the deals that have gone on?
I think the contract for Marcus Williams tells you that we were never in play. We could not have given him anywhere near that. Like I say, if that was what he was looking at, the ballpark figure, like it was never good. That was dead in the water before it started. I think what was interesting that the Cowboys offered Randy Gregory up to 70 million. He verbally agreed, and then at the last second he turned his back on it, and he signed, I think, for the Denver Broncos. So I think that's interesting. Like I say, it's hard to imagine. Like I said, they got rid of Amari Cooper to save that 20. They shelled out on, say, DeMarcus Lawrence. They tried to sign Gregory. Ezekiel Elliott needs money there. So I feel like in the next year or two, the Cowboys could be in a lot of trouble. Like I say, they've got a lot of stuff tied up in guys.
That move with Gregory was class, wasn't it? I mean, the Cowboys put out a tweet saying they have re-signed Randy Gregory to a deal, and then the Broncos tweeted under that in the mentions going, surprise! They've just nicked him from one. That is one of the best bits of shithousery I've seen from a social media team. I think A-star props to them for that. But yeah, I think the Cowboys are going to be in some bother going forward. Chrome's in the chat. Sorry.
The biggest surprise is I've seen recently the Falcons. They're leading the chase for Deshaun Watson, which I thought is crazy because if you deal Matt Ryan, I think you still eat about 40 million of cap. He has got like the second biggest cap hit in the whole league season. This league, he must be going the other way, and they're going to eat all that money. So that's going to be a weird one because they don't have many players to trade either. So
I think you have to send Kyle Pitts back. I think you have to send. I think you have to send Kyle Pitts. I think you have to send Matt Ryan, and I think you have to send 3 first-round picks that way as well. And yeah, like you say, it's shocking. I don't get that, and I don't get the Panthers either after him. The Panthers are the prime pick for me for the number 1 pick next year. They are that awful. It's like, who or what are they trading to them? They've only got 1 pick in the top 100 this year. It's not like they've got a plethora of talent on that team. Obviously, like Brian Burns would have to go, and some of those defensive pieces that they've spent so long trying to build up are going to have to go. I don't get the market for him there either. Why would you go all in if the team around him is going to be horrendous?
The Texans can't want McCaffrey. Like I say, realistically, his trade value is not that high. Like I say, so I don't even know if they'll touch him because he's got a massive contract as well. All these teams that are going for Deshaun Watson have got very little to offer. The Saints were one of the teams because they've got a lot of capital, but they ain't got much to use in players. So I'd say apparently Deshaun will meet with the Falcons personnel personally. It's somewhere that he's interested in. So it could be a lot of 2023 picks. Like I say, they're going to have to really dig deep to get that done.
Well, I mean, the Saints, they'll, likely probably have to include Ryan Ramczyk in that deal, and they're about to lose Teron Armstead. They've lost Marcus Williams. They go on about these cap gymnastics they do, but they're losing elite players year on year, and they're not making any headway in the playoffs. So you think, are they giving up too much as well? Because then their cap's going to go crazy again. I don't know. It's odd with the Deshaun Watson market. I just don't see a front runner for me. I don't think the Panthers are going to do it. The Saints could, but it doesn't make a lot of sense there. And I don't know. It's an odd one with those. Let's say. Yeah, everyone's in the chat today. So Funky Lions fan says, no, we're definitely trying to build a foundation without splurging. That is correct. I think, we are building a team here through the draft. And, that takes time. We're going to have a lot of young rookie guys in there, and maybe we're not going to splurge on the big ones. But I think we've bought the right guys back from the defense last year. Harris played really well. Walker played really well. we're bringing these guys back to come play with the rookies who are developing at a tremendous rate of knots. So, yeah, I agree. We are building the correct foundation here. Funky Lines and Fun also says a wide receiver could definitely still happen before 66. Well, I would put that into question now because I've had it dropped in the comments for me here. One Pride 40 saying Raymond is back, and as I look, the Lions have indeed returned wide receiver slash kick returner slash all-round gadget man Khalif Raymond. Initial thoughts on that one, Ryan?
I hope it's vet minimum. I can't imagine it's going to be much more than $1 million, if I'm personally honest. But if that's mainly special teams duty and playing that wide receiver 4-5, I think I'm surprised by that because a lot of people seem to be forgetting that Quintez Cephas exists. Like, what do we do with Cephas? Does he ask for a trade? Like, does he really see that he's got a future here, or does this worry him? Because I think this definitely changes the wide receiver scenario now as well because we're building it back up again. So it does definitely rule out an early wide receiver now because we're getting a lot of familiar faces back.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely no chance it's top 3, and I will put 66 under threat now as well. Like you say, Cephas is coming back. We have a lot of good young talent on the receiving end there. Oh, Jordan Whitehead's gone to the Jets. It's another safety gone. Yeah, I don't like that one. But yeah, I can't see us drafting a receiver now. Certainly not early. Maybe we're going to go development. But I mean, who was the one we were really looking at? Wan'Dale Robinson I know that we were big on him during the combine. We interviewed him, and he's slated to go in the hundreds, isn't he? So, do you figure that's maybe the only route we're going to see another receiver come in now?
Yeah, it's going to be a middle round guy. It's going to be like maybe a Robbie O'Dowd, something like in the 3rd round onwards.
Yeah, I'd agree there with that. See, Tracy Walker's just been up at the podium doing an interview as well. I was watching that before we had to go live here. Apparently he's mentioned Kyle Hamilton by name, so, we can hope the stars, they're just aligning maybe that little bit more there for us. We can all hope, Walker and Hamilton will be a hell of a back line there for us. Monkey Lions fan says, I want Carolina to trade up to us and give us 6 next year's 2nd and chin. Could be a deal there, but I prefer a bit more capital this year. We've got 2 firsts next year. I want to get in as many players now as I can, but hell, maybe I'm being greedy. Funky Lions fan says, Chrome, he was asked about him. He said that's up to Brad, but if God blesses us with him, I will have a new guy to play with. The best part was he said no homo. Oh dear, Tracy. To be fair though, it is about time we gave Tracy Walker some help there at safety because he's had to deal with Will Harris. We owe the man a competent player to play next to him, and hopefully Harris can become rotational. So I'm really hoping we go for that pair there. So yeah, it's all moving along very fast at the minute. I mean, Christ, I've not had a chance to stop these last 2 days looking after the Roar of the Lions socials. Just everything's going on crazy. But I mean, yeah, Raymond, I don't know. We'll see. I like you. I assume it's probably vet minimum. I mean, what did Garofalo say he'd done last year? It was about 450 yards, something like that. I think a couple of touchdowns. So it wasn't crazy there. It's a 2-year deal, apparently, for him as well. So maybe it's a backloaded deal. So, that's probably how that's allowed to happen because we didn't have a lot of cap before that move. So, I don't know. I mean, what would you wouldn't want to pay more than Vetmin, I guess. But I guess if it's like 2 years, 6-7 million, and a lot of it's backloaded, that could be palatable.
Yeah, you're only going to have, like, say, 2-3 million in it next year. You probably put 4 or 5 to it next year. So, like I say, I think this pretty much finishes off the cap. I think we only had like 5 or 6 million to play with before we heard the details. So, this rules out Miles Jack or any of the linebackers. Like I say, I think this kind of finishes off now.
Right, well, I'll end this in a minute, 'cause obviously with a college football podcast as well as the Lions one, but I mean, if someone like Jack, because I know that Shark has been trying to recruit him here, if he sort of said he did want to come, and he'd give him 10 million, because I know he's on about 14 million a year at the minute, but if he said I'll do 8 or 9, would you do a restructure deliberately to get him here? Because I know we were talking about restructures earlier, and I'm not in favour of it. I don't think there's anyone we can really restructure without making massive cap hits down the line, which I rather wouldn't want. But if you could get that one last player like a Miles Jack, and you had to restructure to do it right now, would you do it?
No, I think I'd just shy away. I think now where I am at the lines at, I think like 32 is going to be a backer. So I think I'm just going to go for a big name rookie.
Yeah, I think we're going to go hard at the start of the draft now, and don't forget, I mean, once the squad starts getting trimmed down and you lose a lot of your fringe guys who are on nearly $1 million apiece, you will get more cap going forward, and then when the June cuts come around, there will be a new plethora of players to go after. We got Charles Harris late last year, and look how that happened. So I don't think the door's completely shut yet, but I'd agree with you. I think we just need to be prudent with the money that we have at this moment in time. One Pride says draft Hamilton, then draft Scene, or move a coda to safety. I mean, I think it was Tom mentioned earlier, we'll just go Hamilton, Brisker, and Scene first 3 picks. Just completely and utterly revamp that safety room there. I mean, it'd be fun, but I mean, we've said it, we'd double dip at safety in the draft, wouldn't we? I probably would still double dip now with Walker there.
Oh yeah, I would. Like say, we play 3 safeties. Like say, we play 2 safeties that play deep halves, and then we have a box safety. So in that scheme, like say, realistically, CJ Moore, special teamer, but called on when needs be. Will Harris, there's no guarantees that he's still going to be here next year. It's also quiet. You don't know if he's going to make the that final 53. So yeah, I think we'll go 1 high safety, 1 high in the draft, and then 1 probably later on prospect.
And we're going to talk about one of them shortly when we get to the pro days, because he's balling out big time at the minute. Just going through the rest of the comments. One Bride thought he goes, dang, just a bunch of re-signs. I mean, I've seen this banded around a lot today. Obviously, we're bringing a lot of the guys back from last year, and we're not adding much new. But, I mean, to me, and I've already mentioned it a bit, we've brought back the right guys, have we not? I mean, Tracy Walker played well. Charles Harris played well. The ones who haven't played so well, i.e. Nick Williams, etc., are gone. I don't think it's just a bunch of re-signs. I think it's the right ones. And with all the youngsters we've got in there and the ones we're going to get in the draft here, I would expect us to be better next year. I don't think it's something we should be worried about just yet. Do you?
No, I don't think. Like I say, there's re-signing players for the sake of it, and then there's being particular in who you re-sign. And it's not like we just brought bodies back for the sake of it. Like I say, some of these guys were instrumental, even on a bad team. Like say, their loyalty and how well they played and never dropped their heads has been rewarded. So I don't think it can be overlooked, and it's not fair to just pigeonhole him as a re-sign merchant. I don't think that's fair.
No, and you know what? Like you mentioned earlier, I'm willing to bet Walker and Harris were maybe offered a little more elsewhere and decided to come back. It's been a long time since we've had players who will come back here for cheaper deals than what they're offered elsewhere. Usually they would just be up and gone. I think it shows a culture change more than anything. If these players are coming back and they're buying into what's going on, then absolutely you want that. I mean, I saw snippets from Tracy Walker's interview, and he was talking about how the Lions are always looked down upon, how they're always sort of dismissed, and it burns a fire in him and makes him want to do better, and you want that sort of player here. As well as being good players, they care about the team, they care about the city, they care about all that. These culture guys are what are changing this thing around so fast, so I don't see it as just a bunch of re-signs. I think, we should be not excited, but I don't think we should be disappointed either. The draft is always going to be the big, indicator of what goes on this year. If we draft really well, go in with these re-signs, we're going to be laughing going into next year. Funky Lines fan says, I'd love to see them draft Hamilton and sign or Brisker, but that would only be acceptable if they traded back and got extra seconds. I agree there. It would be risky double dipping safety so high. It would be nice if we could trade, but depends where that market is at the minute. He also goes, I'd be okay with a restructure on Goff this year if it led to Miles Jack. So, difference of opinion there, but if it happened, I wouldn't complain. It wouldn't be my way of doing it, but I would trust Holmes, especially with all the deals he's done here. Craig Ferguson is in the chat as well. Welcome to you, Craig. He says, glad Charles Harris is back. Solid depth piece. He is, and he's here on a deal that's inoffensive to us as well, and the rebuild going forward. Thanks all of you for being in the chat here. Keep it coming with all the draft chat. We will keep going on with it as the night progresses, but we will move on to some of our orders of business to the show for the day, because we have been going half an hour now and we've not even started yet. So to say, we're going to have a little look back at the NFL Combine first up. Obviously, that finished over a week ago now, but this is the first show we've done since then. The Combine was just about to start before we last recorded on here, and obviously a lot's gone on over Combine week there. But I mean, before we go into the players and the position themselves, what were your overall thoughts on Combine week, Ryan? I know we did some of this on the main pod, but you know, what were your sort of main takeaways from that before we talk about the players themselves?
It just surprises me that, like, well, it doesn't even surprise me anymore that players just get more and more freakish and athletic. Like you say, we had full 8 guys clocking under a 4.4. We had 2 come in, like say, around the 4.3, 1 under a 4.3. So the big guys just continue to get faster and faster, like I say, and the freakish athleticism just, I'd say, gets further off the charts every year. Like I say, everything that you see is just more and more impressive. People say that the Combine is, you should scrap it. People think the Combine doesn't matter, and you can say it's vanity, you can say these numbers don't really matter, but like I say, when it comes to interviews and when it comes to seeing just people actually freakishly working out, like I say, it's always a spectacle. Like I said, I think the one thing I did see that, like, the QBs, like in general, all of them worked out. No one really stood out. No one took that step up. All of them, we knew what they could do and we knew what they couldn't do, but we didn't see anything to say he's QB1. Like, they're definitely going first off the board because it's still very much up in the air. And I don't even think the Pro Days will fix that either. It's just one of them classes where not even seeing them on the biggest stage, testing them, can really convince anyone to trade up and sell a house, one of these guys.
No, I agree. I think this is one where you've really got to trust your scouts on this one. I think a lot of it is going to be down to sort of an innate ability to see what others might not, or maybe to go with gut feeling with some of them. I'd absolutely agree there. Just before we dive down into the Combine stuff, it's just come up on my thing, so we just have to quickly go back and discuss it. The Khalif Raymond deal, it's a new 2-year deal for the Lions worth up to $9.5 million. That's a lot of money. However, the big word is up to. Now, we've seen with some of these deals so far, we're not seeing the Harris one, it's up to. So, up to is a very vague thing. I mean, this could be, 3-4 million guaranteed, which is not a bad deal with incentives. I would say this would be heavily incentivized. I feel like he's not proven that he can be a fully fledged receiver on this team yet, so shouldn't be earning that money. I mean, would you say the same? Do you think this heavily incentivized deal, I might expect to see 3 or 4 million guaranteed and that's it?
Yeah, I expect you can probably say at least you're only going to get half of that guaranteed, if that. Like I say, it's one of those where also it looks scary on paper, but within the next 24 hours, the contract details will come out, I imagine. Like I say, you'll be able to break it down there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come back to that one later. Maybe it'll come out during the show and we can discuss it when we get to more Lions chat at the end. Blue and Silver's joined us in the chat. He says, why is the best run stuffer with freakest athletic traits out of the equation at 2? The Lions had an awful run defense. Don't say because they drafted Levi last year. He hasn't been great. I'm assuming that's either Jordan Davis or Trayvon Walker. I'm guessing Jordan Davis. I mean, if it's Trayvon Walker, then Tom is his biggest fan in the entire world and would take him at 2, and we're getting into a fight about it between him and Hamilton. But, I mean, in Jordan Davis, we'll come to him later because we're talking about the draft, and he obviously took it by storm. But you talked about the quarterbacks there, and that's the best place to start with us. So, the quarterbacks at the Combine, like you say, no one really put themselves into quarterback 1 territory. Obviously, Malik Willis was there. He didn't run the 40, he did his drills, etc. But I mean, I think for me the biggest winner of it was Desmond Ridder. Now obviously Ridder, his 40-yard dash set him out. He had a 4.52 His 40-yard dash, which was good. His vertical was 36 inches. He had a 10'7" broad jump. They're all really good figures for a quarterback, and he's up at 211 pounds as well, so he's not exactly light. I mean, looking at him, the way he threw the ball, it was quite smooth. It was quite fluid. He did well in his drills. I mean, for me, he walked away with the best impression of all the QBs this week. I don't know if you agree, disagree, etc. On Desmond Ridder there.
No, it's easy to see that he was the best athlete on the day. All round general, he proved that he's got a good frame, he's got a bit of weight to him, but he's no slouch. And that's sometimes what you think about him. Like you say, you look at him, you don't think, well, he's not the most mobile. If he's flushed out the pocket, he won't be able to get the hard yards of his legs. But he put some of those questions to bed. Like I say, fairly explosive in the legs, pretty nippy on the 40-yard dash, and like I say, the release was pretty quick and it was pretty smooth, and the pass he was testing in. So he looked pretty good all round. And it was good to see, like I say, where some people didn't partake in anything, he looked like he was willing to have a go at everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he did a good job for himself. I think he's probably put himself up draft boards a bit, might have even pushed himself back into first round equation. But I like what I saw from him. I like Desmond Ridder as a quarterback. I think he's going to be good. I just don't think he's our guy going forward, but I think that about most of the quarterbacks in this class. I mean, and then on the flip side, obviously, the measurement came out. Everyone was waiting for one measurement at the combine when it came to the quarterbacks, and one measurement only. Kenny Pickett's hand size. I think it came out at 8.5 inches eventually, which would be the smallest hand size of a quarterback ever drafted before, I believe, and the joint record for smallest hands by a quarterback played in the NFL. Did this really affect his draft stock, do you reckon? Because people have known this has come in for a long time. Or are people just going to... I mean, are the guys in power just going to disregard this and draft him anyhow?
They're just going to draft him anyhow. We've known for at least a year that he's got small hands. That's why he wears 2 gloves, to help with grip, especially in the calls. Like I say, it's hard. People can make a direct case between lots of turnovers and small hand size, because he has got a lot of turnovers. Like I say, he's fumbled quite a bit. There were issues, let's say, throwing interceptions. If you want to put that down to hand size, which is fair enough, but Ridder also has got big hands. He's also fumbled tons of times in college, so maybe there's not a direct comparison. But the measurement didn't really do anything. It just confirmed anything we knew. I still expect him to go well high in the first round. I don't think it'll change anything. Even he said, I think he tweeted in response saying, well, hand size doesn't matter when I'm out there pinging 45-yard passes. No one seems to care then. Which is a good response. Like you say, he took offence to all the criticism.
Well, I think it's just like, positional value in a draft at safety. It's like, if you're good enough, then you're worthy enough of that pick. And if he's good enough as a quarterback, even with his small hands, he's worthy of the pick. So, it just all comes down to innate talent, I think, at the end of the day. Just back in the chat quickly, Blue and Silver was mentioning Jordan Davis at number 2. Only problem I have with that is I think he's very much like Liam McNeil. He's a nose tackle, and whether we can accommodate a second nose tackle on our team whilst having Penasini here as well, schematically it may work. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel a bit funny about it. I'm massively high on Liam McNeil, and I just think he's maybe a bit too similar to him. I think Aleem came on leaps and bounds and will be our own glorious run stuffer going forward, but you can make a case for it. And if he's there and they decide to go with it, then Jesus Christ, we're going to have one hell of an interior defensive line next year. We'll be all for it there. He said he'd be good with Trayvon Walker too as well. Funky Lions fan says, I'm good with so many people that it's a weird feeling going into a draft. Well, Jesus. There are about 7-8 players we could take at 2 now. There's a lot. You throw Malik Willis in there as well. You throw Kayvon in there. There are probably about 7 or 8 guys who legitimately could be taken there by now. Funky Lions fan also says Pickett's hand size, the same size as Mike Vick. Mike didn't fumble a lot. That's true. I guess it's just, I guess it just depends how you go about your business when it comes to being on the pitch. So, in terms of the other quarterbacks, I mean, obviously Ridder came out really well. Is there anyone who you thought less of after this, or anyone else who did well for that matter? I think outside of those, obviously Willis did what he needed to do. He's still probably going to be maybe quarterback 1 in this. He did just enough, although he didn't run the 40, but What did you think of the other guys who were there?
I was surprised by Willis's measurements. He's smaller than I thought he was. He only came in at 6 foot, 219 pounds. I could have sworn that Liberty had him listed like 6'1.5", 6'2". Like I feel like he was quite undermeasured. Like say, I feel like we were led to believe he's bigger than he is. So that was something that uh, wasn't great. But I know he didn't run the 40 because he felt like he didn't need to, because we know what he's about. He's a dual athlete and he's a speed merchant. But the passes, the throws were really nice. There was one like really nice long deep ball where he throws it and he just drops his hand down and then minds his own work because he knows it's dropped it right in the breadbasket. He looked really good. He was accurate on the day, which for me felt really good. That was what people needed to see from him. So that's where I enjoyed watching him operate, like I say, out on the field and drills.
Yeah, I must admit he did look really good while he was out there, and because he's going to be object of many a discussion going forward to draft time now, whether we take him at 2, whether we go there, it remains to be seen. I mean, one other guy who impressed me while I was there, and I've been impressed with him for a while now, the Brown quarterback, E.J. Perry. I mean, he ran a 4.6, I believe it was, in his 40-yard dash, which is really damn good for a quarterback. His shuttle was 4.18. His 3-cone was 6.85, which is elite. I think that ranks in like the 95th percentile of guys who've done that there. And development quarterback is one way we could possibly go this year in the draft. If we're not going to get, now that Boyle's back, we're going to go development later on, and he's in that group with Akil Glass, with Caleb Ellaby, who could potentially be really good guys to pick up later on. I mean, did you like his performance there as well? I thought he looked great, and he's firmly entrenched in that group of development guys who I would be quite happy to see us pick at this point.
Yeah, I saw him. He looked good. He looked smooth. He worked out really well. He was apparently pretty good in his interviews as well. He came across as a very likable guy, also intelligent. Like I say, he's had a good education. And people say it was for the camera, but I saw the video of him cleaning up all the rubbish after everyone left because he didn't want the field left in a mess. He might have known the cameras were there, but maybe he's just a nice guy that's respectful to his surroundings. So I liked that about him, even though he knew the eyes were on him. So he seems like someone that is, like I say, he's in that project group of that, like say, rounds 4, 5 to 7, where they could take a year or two, but you never know. There could be the next Gardner Minshew kind of guy.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's got a future in the NFL, and if someone gives him the chance and he works out, he could potentially get a starting job down the line. Anything else about the quarterbacks before we head on?
No, like I say, the biggest loser in all this we know is already Matt Corral. Like I say, no one's seen him since he hobbled off in the bowl game, and it's impossible to say what's going to happen with him now. He could be on a very slippery slope.
Yeah, agreed fully. He was probably consensus QB1 probably back in November, December. They say this injury has just really kiboshed his chances. It wasn't meant to be that bad, they said, but well, he's still out now. Maybe he's recovering for his pro day, but it would have been good to see him there. So he's going to have a really good pro day to bounce back from that. Moving on to the running backs. One of your favourite guys probably had the standout day of all here. Breece Hall, the Iowa State running back. He had a 4.39 40-yard dash, which is rapid. He was the largest guy, I think, above like 6 foot or something, who went sub 4.4. I mean, he's 217 pounds. He looked good there. He looked good in his drills, and he's putting himself into maybe running back 1 consideration here. I mean, some people have even said maybe even late round 1 consideration. He did that well.
He's the most complete back in the draft for me. Like I say, what I saw, he carried that Iowa State offense. He put that team on his back, and he broke a very impressive record. What was it? 24 straight games of rushing touchdown. No one stopped him in almost 2.5 years. Like I say, that is impressive. Like I say, he's as big as he is strong. But like I say, he put that 4.40 in that blazing time. He has really soft hands as well. Look nice in the drills, tidy around the cones. It wouldn't surprise me if someone reached and took him in the end of the first round. For me, he will be the first back off the board.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think at this point it looks like he might be the first one there, but I mean I don't know. He could be run close. Michigan State's own Kenneth Walker, he showed out big at the combine as well. Obviously, he's had one of the best seasons by a running back there in some time, but I mean he really showed up at this. I think they said his 10-yard split was like 1.5 seconds. I mean that's just crazy speed from a guy like him, a guy who is that quick and as agile as he is and looks as good as he does. I mean, he didn't do the most backfield work at Michigan State, but he's looked comfortable doing it in the combine, etc. I mean, I think his stock's gone through the roof as well. He could potentially be in like upper round 2 calling now.
Yeah, I wasn't that high on him at the next level. Like I say, I know what he did at Michigan State. That I thought, well, can he do it at the next level? Like you say, he's worked out really well. People have started to put him as that running back 2-3 kind of slot, and maybe he's going to surprise us all. Maybe he's going to turn out to be the best back in the class, and it wasn't just a freaky breakout year or a fluke. So he's definitely going up boards, and I think he's going to be good value if he can fall to like the third round. Like I think someone will be really happy to get him. Like I say, start off as a good complementary back, but could work his way to be a bell cow for someone in the future.
Agreed. C. Perry's in the chat. What up, Doe? What up, Doe to you? Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Just going through the combine at the moment. So, those couple of running backs who really stood out. Was there anyone else who stood out to you in a positive way in terms of the running backs?
Yeah, Pierre Strong Jr. Like I say, the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Like I say, I've mentioned him in the past a few times. Like I say, he's been a workhorse for that FCS side for a couple of years. He was terrific. 4:37.40, which was one of the fastest out of all backs on the day. He did a nice 36-inch vertical, and when he was running the drills and the routes to gauntlet, he had nice soft hands that were cushioned in. Didn't stray too far off the line, like I say, and he showed that he's got that dual threat. He's a very smooth receiver, catching balls out the backfield, as well as a good runner. Like I say, he came in at, I think, 5'11 3/4, so just under 6 foot. So he's got a good build to him as well. I think he could be, like I say, he could sneak into in the second, but I think if you got him in the third round or towards the end of there, I think he'd be really good value at the next level. I think he's climbing in that pecking order for running backs.
I know his popularity is increasing, and I think you're the driver behind this because I see him in more and more Lions mock drafts, especially by people who listen to us. So I think you're single-handedly sort of bringing up his stock amongst Lions fans. But I agree with you. He's done really well. Everything from the HCBU Bowl, I think he was in there, from the Senior Bowl, the Combine, all of it. He's performed really well, and I agree. He was another who had a great day. On the ones who didn't necessarily, I mean, a surprising one, Isaiah Spiller looked really bad. And I mean, he didn't do himself any favours, but I think also the surprising one for me, Kyron Williams, the Notre Dame running back, had himself a not so great day earlier. Only weighed in at 194 pounds, so he's, not got much on him. He had the slowest 40-yard dash of any of the running backs in attendance. I think it was 4:65. He had a 32-inch vertical, just a 9'8" broad jump. They're bad figures for him, and he needed to have a strong showing. And I think with some of the running backs who have come through to prominence, he's really hurt himself going into the draft.
4:65 is bad. That is getting beaten by linebackers, safeties, tight ends. Like say that. We'll talk about tight end later. Like I said, about a guy called Gilani Woods. He ran a 4:67 at 6'7". He runs upright, so that is dreadful for Karen, unfortunately. I'd say so. He's going to really struggle now. He has slipped down the pecking order. Like I say, he's going to need a good pro day. He's really going to have to. He's going to have a few cracks at his 40 again and try get that under 4.6. Otherwise, it's really going to affect him come draft time.
Yeah, definitely. He's one who's really struggled there, and yeah, he's going to have a pro day and a half to get himself back in that conversation again. Moving it on to the wide receivers, and there's only one wide receiver everybody's talking about at the minute. You've talked about him a lot because you've seen him a lot this year watching the FCS. We're of course talking about Christian Watson, the darling of the FCS. You know, he's last year's Trey Lance. Everybody loves this guy. North Dakota State. His stats for the day were incredible. He ran a 4:36.40. He got 38.5-inch vertical, 11'4" broad jump. Just think about that. Jumping on 11.5 feet from a standing start. I can't even begin to imagine that. And all that while he's 6'4". He's 208 pounds. I mean, those numbers are elite. There's no other word to describe it. They're just elite, elite, elite. And out of this, postseason program, the combine, the Senior Bowl, everything, his stock has just, gone completely through the roof. This was a guy who we talked about maybe as a late third round, upper fourth round guy. He's in first round consideration now. He looked incredible.
Yeah, he is just ridiculous. As you say, he's the biggest riser out of the last, I'd say, 3 weeks. Like I said, start with the Senior Bowl. Everything he's done or touches has just turned to gold. He measured up properly. Like I say, it's rare that you go and your measurements are identical, but NDSU had him listed pretty much exactly what he is. He had those long, slender arms, the length's really good. And he had one of those freakish, like Obi Melifonwu kind of workouts where everything was just excellent and that highest percentile. So ridiculous athlete. The only thing people use against him, might say, is from the FCS, but I think he will still make an impact at the next level. It's hard to see him on the board after pick 40. I think he will be gone in the top 40 picks now. He has shot up that high because he looks like a proper X receiver. If you're going to build a guy, you'd probably build it just like him.
Exactly, and it just makes him such a tempting prospect. I mean, if you were being greedy now, would you still draft him at 32 or 34? Because, we've got Chark, but can you imagine Chark and him on the outside? Amon-Ra, Reynolds, Hawkinson killing it on the inside. Jesus. We'd gone from one of the worst wide receiver cores apparently in the league last year. We'd suddenly have one of the most exciting.
Yeah, if we went two defensive picks in the first round, or if we could move back from 2 and he's on the board at 34, I would definitely take him if we've addressed some needs first. Because he's a luxury pick, but he's a very high luxury, I think, possibly.
Yeah, I'd agree there. He is maybe a luxury pick, but you can't help but sometimes be a bit greedy about it. I think I'd definitely, if we were to get him, I wouldn't complain. I don't think in the absolute slightest. He's got a point to prove, and he'll come up to the NFL, and he will do that. But we'll see what happens. In terms of other guys who did really well, local lad in there. His pro day was yesterday. He balled out at that. We were there to watch him. Sky Moore. I know he's another who's getting a lot of traction, especially amongst Lions fans at the minute. Probably more because of his proximity to Michigan in there. But there's no doubt he's an excellent receiver, and he did incredibly well again during the combine. I think watching him in his drills in there, I was quite surprised about just how athletic this guy was, how well he moved, how well he caught the ball. I think he did his draft stock a lot of good.
Yeah, that's what people say about him. It's how well he tracks the ball. Like I say, in the air, it's the deep threat that he offers you because he gets underneath stuff. Like I say, he's got strong, soft hands that secures the ball, so he can make those big splash plays when needs be. He's a nice, crisp, tidy route runner. So I think he's going to be someone that is going to be a real. When we're talking about draft steals, in a year, and you look back at how they did, he could certainly be one of those guys if he falls to the 3rd or even the 4th round. Like I say, if he really does get that far and someone picks him up, like you say, you could get a really solid wide receiver 2 out of him.
Absolutely, and you've got to give props to Western Michigan as well. They kicked out Dwayne Eskridge last year in the draft. I really loved him. I was ashamed that the Seahawks got their hands on him. They've got Sky Moore this year. They seem to have this nice little conveyor belt of receiving talent coming out at the minute, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're taking a very long look at him, especially with Raymond back and maybe the need for a wide receiver diminishing. In terms of other guys just who stood out for me, the one who is standing out a lot, and the one who I didn't really want because of his size, but he's not forcing me to love him, but he's convincing me to love him because he did well at the Senior Bowl as well. Calvin Austin III, had a tremendous combine. I mean, he's small. He's about 5'8", and you think, God, when it comes to the NFL, is he gonna be able to like rough it up against these big corners and all that? But the guy just he's so quick. He gets so much separation. He will go hands on hands with people. So it's not like he's not afraid of physicality, and he's gone before you can get a hand on him. And again, he just showed everything you wanted him to, because obviously you need that separation for a guy's size. You need the route running skills, and he's showing absolutely everything that he needs to. And I can't help but like him. I don't know about you.
Yeah, like I say, it's explosive. He's got that athleticism. He's got those afterburners as well. He can put the jets on that some guys just can't do. Some guys get to that speed and then they kind of just burn out. Whereas he's got another gear, which is he's able to get that yak because he's able to get in behind guys. And once you get in a foot race with him in the open field, if he's behind a corner, safety coming across, you're probably not going to catch him in a foot race. He's heading for the pylon, so he offers that explosiveness that some players just can't offer you.
And I know the Lions like him as well, so intriguing to see what happens when it comes to him. Shout out as well to Tyquan Thornton, the unknown about wide receiver from Baylor before this, but he broke John Ross's 40 record here. I think he ran a 4.26 or something like that, as opposed to his 4.28. So he's broken a new record, and he'll be on there for that. Any other receivers impress for you during that week?
I know one that didn't impress me.
Your favourite?
David Bell. It was a car crash. Like I say, I know how good he is, and people know how good he is, but it was dreadful from the start to the end. A 4.65/40, just a 33-inch vertical, 9 feet 10 broad jump. He couldn't even clear 10 feet. Like I say, a 4.57 short shuttle, so that makes him slower than like Sewell offensive tackles. The footwork is just not there in short rounds. He's a skinny 212.61, but I know how well he is. He's a savvy route runner. Like I say, he's very crisp once the ball's in his hands. He makes guys miss in the open field. He can run the whole skill tree, but athletically, he's just not there. Like I say, he's just not going to get away from defenders. He's going to get tackled in bounds because he doesn't have the speed or the agility. But he's crashed the stock. Like I say, now there's no chance of him going anywhere near the back end of the first. Like I say, he'll be lucky to get into the middle of the second round potentially, because he's just put a lot of people off, unfortunately.
I agree, but for me, this is where I do have some sort of an issue with the combine. I know you say don't go off the 40 times too much. You've got to do the tape in college, and you know, this is a guy who's produced in the Big Ten, which is not the easiest to. He put 100 up on Ohio State. He put 250 yards up on Iowa, who have got some wonderful secondary guys. He's got the production at a high level, something that a Christian Watson doesn't have. So I hope it doesn't affect his stock too much. But I agree, he could have done a lot better, and his drills were disappointing. But I would also hope that people look at the tape and see what he's done against some high-level opposition in the Big Ten, and not bring it too harshly on him. But he did have a bad day. I kind of feel guilty then, because when you said guys who had a bad week and you sighed, I was about to say Dontario Drummond. And because I know you loved Ontario, and I thought he had a really bad week in there, but I feel bad and that you might disagree with me now. I was not impressed with Ontario Drummond at all, which was a shame, because he's had a really good year at Ole Miss, and you know, this was his chance to shine as well. And for me, he didn't quite cut it. But feel free to disagree, because I know how much you love him.
No, I think he's been exposed a little bit now. We knew that he had a really nice year at Ole Miss. He was like Corral's security blanket, and he was a reasonably good deep threat as well. Like I said, he was a good average yards per reception, but I think we've found his limitations. He's not incredibly quick. Like I said, he's not got that elite athleticism. So I think he's going to get lost in the crowd now in those middle rounds. He could very well be a savvy pickup for a team if they get him late enough, but no, he isn't able to claw away and stand out. So he struggled throughout the off season, unfortunately, but I think he'll still get picked up in one of the middle rounds.
Treylon Burke struggled as well, which was a shame. Obviously his 40 time was 4:55, which ain't out of this world. But I mean, for a guy his size, it's not too bad. But I think he only got like a 34-inch vertical, which is not great for a guy his size. He struggled with the broad jump, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'd go off his tape. This guy is really good. Don't worry about his speed. I mean, if you want to see what speed he's got, there's a play against Georgia Southern where he has a screen pass thrown out to him, and he straight up, flat out burns 4 of their defenders with raw pace. Takes it about 80 yards to the house. I don't think his play speed is anything to worry about, but he didn't do himself a large amount of favours for this one. So, and his pro day was a few days ago, and he didn't choose to run his 40 there either, and apparently didn't look great there either. So, maybe a few concerns, but might be pushing him down to us at 32 if we do choose to go receiver. So, hey ho, it works both ways. Move it on. Tight ends. Now, you've mentioned him already. I'll let you go straight into him. Gilani Woods had a great day, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked really nice in the drills. Like I said, he is one of the biggest tight ends at like 221 and 6'7". Like I say, he ran a blistering 40. Like I say, he clocked in like a ridiculous, like was it 471? I think he ran something like that. Yeah, which for his size and his build is fantastic. Like I say, I've watched him play. He's very much a north and south kind of guy. He's great in a straight line. Like I say, he wants to get out of his stance or shed a block and then just look straight upfield. He can be a burner. Like I say, he had a really nice bench press as well. I think he got a good 21, 22 reps. So he's got a strong chest. Like I say, he's very raw. Like I say, Virginia didn't ask him to do all that much. Like I say, there's the odd bit of tape on him where he flashes out. He's very much a project that's just flashed as a bit of an athletic freak there. So I think this is definitely one to take with a pinch of salt. Don't just reach for him, like I say, but there's definitely something there to work with.
Absolutely, I agree. I think he had a really good combine. There is a lot to work with, there is a lot to like, but there is a lot to refine as well. But I think that's the theme of this tight end class. There's no guy who's going to come in immediately and be as close to a complete package as he can be out of college for you. I mean, there were quite a few good tight end performances at the combine. I mean, the big one for me, and we've mentioned him a bit recently, especially
Maryland
since we
guy?
did the big, Chiga Okonkwo, or Chigozium Okonkwo, and he ran a 4:54 as a tight end. That's quicker than what Treylon Burks ran. This guy, he was the fastest safety at the combine. I know we don't go off 40 speeds and that, but he's had a really good year with Maryland. He's shown up at the combine. He looked great in drills. I watched the tight end drills specifically, and I was looking at him, and he looked really good. And he's one who seems to have appeared out of nowhere. Obviously, Maryland weren't the best team in the world this year, but as it's come to the postseason stuff, he's really showed out, and he's another one who's pushing himself up draft boards. I mean, I don't know where he'll go now, to be fair, but he'll be a lot higher than what he was predicted before. I think it was a 5th, 6th round tender I saw on him at one point, but I damn well assure you he's not going that low now.
Oh, he's a great receiving threat, yeah. Comes from that Talia Tungavailoa pass-heavy offense, which tried to gash teams, like you say. So as a receiving threat, if you want to put him in the slot, I think he'd be a really nice slot addition to some teams, like I say, because he's got that nice savvy route running. He's got that speed as well, good hands. So I think he could be a real weapon for some teams that are looking for a dynamic tight end. The blocking is where he'll either help himself or crucify himself. That's the thing he'll probably have to work on most.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, like I say, he is a mid-round prospect. There is stuff to work on, but he's one who's he's done as well as he can for his draft stock in this postseason cycle, and hopefully it gets him a good opportunity somewhere. I think the guy out of all of them may be another one who did really well. I know he's Luke G's most unfavoured tight end in the entire world ever, but UCLA tight end Greg Dulcich, he competed in everything. I think he was the only tight end who did all the measurables and the drills, and he performed admirably well. It was above average for everything, green across the board. He's put himself into serious consideration for tight end 1 now, I guess, against Trey McBride. He had a really good day.
Yeah, he shone. Like I say, struggled at times in a UCLA offense, which was a bit inconsistent. So I didn't know what to expect him working out, but very willing. Like you say, he wanted to take a go at everything. because he wanted to prove the doubters wrong. So he did really well, and he did himself the world of good, really. Like I say, above average across the board, and he's got the chance now to possibly get picked up in maybe one of the first 2 or 3 Titans off the board. So I think in a very crowded room, he's definitely give himself some breathing space.
Yeah, definitely. And then just in terms of guys who didn't do well, one who didn't give himself any breathing room as well, which is a shame because I really like him. But Cole Turner, the behemoth from Nevada, 6'6", he struggled. He ran a 4.76.40. He only got a 27-inch jump on his vertical. You know, he's meant to be like quite an athletic, movable tight end, and those are really the measurables that you're looking at: how high he can jump, how quick he can run, and he came up short, no pun intended, on both of them.
Yeah, I did see that. Like I say, it's someone that's going to be looked at as a receiving threat, especially in the red zone. The slow 40 doesn't help there because that does kind of negate the huge size if he does look like he's running or wading through mud at times. Like I say, he doesn't shift too well. So he certainly didn't do himself any favours with those. He'll probably look to improve on those times or those drills. You think he'd want to have another crack at him.
Yeah, absolutely. You would expect him to really go again at Pro Day. I know it's not been yet. I think it's in a couple of weeks, so he's got a bit of chance to regroup then. Anyhow, rounding off the offense, obviously we're talking about the offensive line, obviously very varied, a lot of guys in here, but your immediate thoughts, who really came out for you sort of on the offensive line during the combine?
I think we're going to have to say that Ikwonu, Ikwonu, he has probably raised himself as the number one consensus offensive tackle right now. I think he is really good, like I say, and he tested well as well. Like I say, he ran just under 5 seconds, which I think is pretty impressive for an offensive tackle. But we knew everything about his game. He wasn't someone that had to really light up the board. He just had to prove everything we already knew about him. So he only had to run those limited drills. And with Evan Neal not working out, I think that was his chance to leapfrog him and say, look, I'm the guy. I'm going to be the first off the board because someone else has not turned up. So I think he's probably done himself the world of good there just by showing up and doing the very little he had to do.
Yeah, I agree. I love him. He's coming out of school that I've begun to really like, especially because we got a Liam from them last year. And it's going to be very interesting to see whether he can supplant Neal as the top prospect in the draft, maybe a potential number 1 pick. But I agree, he looked ever so good. And moving on the interior, for me, a guy I've been high on for ages, Zion Johnson, just continues to look absolutely amazing, and he's got to be in with a serious shout of being drafted first round now. So he had a 32-inch vertical, 32 bench reps. He got a 738 3 cone. He had a 446 short shuttle. You know, this guy is just athletic as they come. He's coming from a school which is known for providing its offensive linemen, and you know, I think he's probably now the top guard prospect for me. I mean, Kenyon Green has been that way for a long time, but I think he's even better than him potentially.
Yeah, I'd say he's the number 1 guard. Like say, Boston College just produce those elite level offensive linemen. They run such a pro style line. Like say, he's massive, he's strong, but he's also light on his feet. You know for a fact he's going to be able to get to the second level. He's able to release and carry on with further assignments, which is always good. You can trust him. So I think it's probably safe to say I think he's probably going to go at the end of the first round. He could be the 3rd or 4th offensive lineman taken off the board after a bunch of tackles.
Yeah, I agree. I think he could very well potentially be the first guy off there. Because I mean, on the flip side of that, Kenyon Green didn't really do as well there. You look at his stats overall, and they were rather middling, and there was nothing he stood out in, which when you compare it to what Zion Johnson did, you're like, ooh, hang on a bit here. There's obviously quite a big difference in athleticism. Again, Zion Johnson's coming from a school known for creating his own linemen there. I think for me, those two have traded places because of what they did at the combine.
Yeah, I'd say so. Now they've pretty much, there'll be two in and throwing even in the pro days between 1 and 2, but I expect Zion just to keep that spot and pip into it.
Yeah, agreed. And just finishing off with the tackles, maybe some of the other guys. One guy who is holding up really well, and I was concerned about him because I thought he was maybe getting projected too high, and this is an interesting one, so we're going to talk about him in the Pro Day segment, but Central Michigan's left tackle, Bernard Raymond, the I call him 8 foot as a joke, but he's absolutely bloody huge. The left tackle from Central Michigan, he tested really well again in the combine, and for a guy his size, he moves in ways you wouldn't expect him to, and given he's very raw, because obviously him and Godecker from Central Michigan, they're both tight end, converts. They both used to play tight end. They've not even been playing tackle that long, and he's projected somewhere near the end of the first round at the minute, but he's not giving anyone any reason to doubt him with all his combine, with all his combine workouts, etc.
No, I think he looks like a really solid prospect. Like say him and Godecker, like they could both get drafted reasonably high. Like say, and I'm pretty sure Detroit may well have some interest in both of them. Like say, it seems like they've taken an interest. Hank Fraley has definitely done his research on them. Like say, it seems like they look great guys as well. So he's got that athleticism to go with that huge, monstrous frame. He knows how to use his body and use his weight, which is great to see. So I think those two are going to be really good. Like I say, they can offer some great depth for someone in this draft.
I wouldn't be surprised if we walk away from the draft with one of them, that's for sure. Your man Kellen Dyche did well. I know he's probably not up there with a lot of the other tackles on, but he had himself a pretty decent combine from what I saw.
Yeah, good combine and good pro day. I say she was yesterday. Him and Donovan West, who's one of the good guard prospects as well. So there's 2 offensive linemen that Sun Devils going to have drafted this year. I think Donovan West could really be one of the Lions' possible guard guys. Like I say, he'll kick him out. Could see a right guard of the future.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Anything else you want to say about the offensive line before we move on to the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah. No. I think, like I say, I'm hoping Evan Neal will have a pro day, but I imagine he must be hurt, or is he saving himself?
I don't know. A lot of guys either claimed injury or said they were going back off injury and pushed their days back. So it's very hard to tell with some of them. But all I'll say is that picture of him, the one that circulated around, you're like, how the hell does that guy weigh as much and is as big as they say he is? He looks so nifty and nimble, doesn't he?
He's jacked, isn't he? Yeah. I see. A lot of offensive linemen have a belly, but no, he had pecs like steel.
Yeah, it's just like, good God, there's absolutely no way I would want to run into him at all. He just looks like he's built like a chunk of iron. But a chunk of iron that's incredibly athletic and moves really well. Scary. Right, so that's everything for the offensive side of the ball. Moving on to the defensive side of things, and we'll flip sides and go on to the defensive line here. So obviously we start at defensive tackle, and I mean, it was mentioned in the chat up at the beginning of the show. Was it Silver who was talking about it? Jordan Davis. First place you start. I mean, this guy was just freakish in the way he went about his business. His 40-yard dash was 4.78. Now, compared to the offensive guys we've just been mentioning, you think, that's really quite slow. But this guy is over 340 pounds. Nobody before him who's ever weighed over 340 pounds has run faster than a 4.98. So he's a full two-tenths of a second quicker than anybody else at his size who's ever ran the 40-yard dash before. It is a considerable gap, beating the record set by Dontari Poe. He ended up going number 11 in the draft that he went out in. I can't remember which year it was, but I mean, the way he moved, the speed he moved at, his drills, he's put himself from, in the first round to utter top 10 consideration now.
Yeah, ridiculous. Like I say, look at the broad jump. He has the longest broad jump of anyone over 300 pounds since 2000 at 10 feet 3. The only second one was Tristan Wirth, so at 10'1". And look how well he turned out. So but the weight, that explosiveness in a lower core, like say that able to drive from a standing point, which offensive lineman is, like say you're in standing motion, and then to be able to explode like that, like say he is going to absolutely maul and pancake some guys there if he can generate that power between the feet up through his body and out through his arms. Like say he is going to be an absolute bruiser.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, is he seriously in your consideration for the number 2 pick, or is it maybe just a little bit too rich for us?
Oh no, I don't want a defensive tackle or an offensive tackle at 2. I don't want them in the first round.
No,
I don't want a trenches draft, even though I know how good he is. The only way I take him is if we trade 2.
Yeah.
If we trade 2, we move back a few spots, then fine, take Walker or Davis. I'll take that if we can get another extra first rounder.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's good. In terms of defensive tackles, though, defensive tackles had a really strong combine, I think, overall, just like they had a really strong Senior Bowl. The 2 guys I mentioned on the main podcast, who I think have been incredible, both of them off-season, obviously, Travis Jones, the UConn defensive tackle, the only good player on that team, has done his stock no end of good since he came here. I mean, I was watching his drills. The guy moves like a linebacker. He was moving side to side during the positional drills, and you're thinking, good God, how is this guy moving so quick? But he's potentially one of the best run-stuffing D tackles after Jordan Davis, maybe the second best of them all, in this draft. And now that he's been cut free of UConn, he's been able to really show what he's capable of. And, you know, he's at the point now where if we are going defensive tackle, I'm considering him at 66. He might not even be there, but I would strongly consider drafting him at that point. But I mean, you know, again, for a defensive tackle, he moved crazily. He looked like a linebacker.
Yeah, it's crazy to think how just people don't understand weight and how big some of these guys are, how heavy they are, how much weight they're carrying. But they move like ballerinas. They're so light on their feet. They change direction incredibly quickly. And from a standing start, whether you're going to put them in a 3-tech or a 5-tech, the power that they're able to get and exploding from a crouch position is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And they say this guy is a great run stuffer. I'd strongly consider him for us just because I'm putting him in there with Aleem. I've got 2, you know, hunks of defensive tackle who can't get moved. Certainly not the way Williams and Brockers were getting levered around last year, but I absolutely love the thought of him coming to us if he goes to the right place. Ken Stouder's in the chat. Ken, thank you for joining us. He says that Dontari Poe went 11th overall in the 2012 draft. God, I didn't think that would be that long ago. God, maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me, but I didn't think he was that old in terms of when it came to his drafting. But thanks for that, Ken. Do appreciate it. Other one who did well for me was Perry and Winfrey. He had an MVP week at the Senior Bowl. You know, now that he's been released from nose tackle at Oklahoma and they're playing him at 3-tech like they're meant to, which is where he plays, I mean, this guy's just not looked back. I mean, it's like, what the hell were they doing with him all these years? They're just putting him in at 0-tech when it's clearly not his position. You put him at 3-tech, that Oklahoma defense is suddenly a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, a lot of wasted potential and a wasted time there with him. Sticking him on nose tackle, putting him heads up on likes of a big bulky centre when he should have been kicked out a bit further and allowed to operate in more space. So he has got to be one of the winners of the entire off-season. Like I say, tremendous Senior Bowl. He was dominating the offensive tackles. He was bullying guys. And then he's backed up with an incredible testing. Pro Day doesn't even really need to do anything. Like I say, I think he's done everything he can do now. And he's got everyone talking about him. So you'd expect him to be in consideration. That late first, early second, he's gonna get gobbled up fairly quickly.
Yeah, agreed. Ken goes, time goes too fast. Yes, Ken, it does. I feel like I was 22 minutes ago, now I'm 32. Time does go by. He also says Wyatt at 34 may be possible also. Well, I was going to mention him next. Devontae Wyatt was another one. The Georgia guys really showed out at the Combine. And he's another that's just up in that area where he could potentially go really high. But, you know, the Georgia D in general was just amazing and performed really well at the Combine. You can't really say anything bad against any of them, can you? They all balled out.
No, Louis Sean were fantastic. Georgia just in general had I don't know if any of them had a really bad Combine. I feel like everyone was just really good.
That's on both sides of the ball. So, yeah, I agree. Wyatt had a really good showing there. Um, in terms of guys who didn't do well, there weren't many, but I know you mentioned them on the main pod. DeMarvin Leal.
Leo.
Take it away.
I'm sorry, DeMarvin, but if you're going to be 6'4" and the defensive lineman at just 283 pounds, so you're already undersized for your position, you can only jump 27-inch vertical and an 8'10" broad jump. His legs are made of like dry spaghetti. There's no power in them whatsoever. He can't generate any explosion, so he has got to be athletic because he's not big. He's not that strong. And if he gains more weight, he's just going to probably get more sluggish. So he is on a crash course right now. Like I said, a year ago before the Texas A&M season, he was probably going in the top 15 to 20 picks now. I don't think there's any chance of him going in the first round now. Like I say, he needs to really have a pro day. He needs to show people as well, because in the other drills, like on-field drills as well, like it was a bit stuttery, a bit stop-starty. There wasn't much fluid to it, the cones and the shuttle, everything. So it was very disappointing in general for him, and he's had a bad off season. Like I say, it's not gone well for him this year.
And just to put it into perspective, his 40 time was bang on 5 seconds at 283 pounds. 300.
It's not heavy. No?
340 pound plus Jordan Davis ran it, over 0.2 of a second quicker, with 70 more pounds on him. Again, if he's going to be that light on there, you want to see the speed, don't you? You don't want to see him getting beaten by a 340 pound nose tackle.
No, he's going to really struggle against offensive tackles if this is what he can offer. Like I say, I don't even know where, if he's that unathletic at that size and weight, I don't know where you line him up. Like I say, you can try kick him as far as you want, but he ain't got the speed to be a pass rusher off the edge. So I'm really questioning now where he fits in. Who wants him in a 3-4? Who wants him in a 4-3? There's a lot more questions than answers right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Ken goes, I tried to do a Georgia-only mock. Could not do it. Too many high picks. The only late-round pick is the punter. I'd agree. You might struggle to get 2 guys, I reckon, out of that. You might get Seen at 32. You might get Trayvon, Walker. No, you'll get Davis there. You might not get any of the others, will you? It could be a Georgia-heavy first round.
Well, if you think about Jameson Williams as well. Oh, and he's Bama, isn't he?
Jameson Williams he's recovering off his ACL tear as well.
Yeah. Like I say, have Georgia got many receivers?
Pickens. Is it Pickens?
George Pickens, yeah. I think George Pickens, he could sneak into the end of the first round as well. So, like I say, we've got N'Kobe Dean, you've got Key Walker as well. Like I say, he could still be a first rounder for some people. You could have 5 or 6 Georgia defenders in the first round and just a receiver. So it's going to be crazy for them. I don't know what the record is of the players going in the first round from a college, but you could be about to break it or match it.
There you go, Ken. Maybe try that. Instead of doing a Georgia-only mock draft, do a Georgia-only first-round mock draft. You might get more people in that than you would a proper 7-round one there. God, yeah. That defense is crazy. We're going to look back on it in a few years. It's just going to be so good. But yeah. And yeah, Jameson Williams is Alabama. I wish people would, a lot of people say they want to get Jameson Williams. They don't realise he's not going to be fit till halfway through next season. You are punting the pick if you pick Jameson Williams this year. You're punting it to next year. I'm just going to say that.
He's on a slow. Yeah. He's on a slow road to recovery because the injury happened so late.
Yeah, I would just like people to know that if you're picking Jameson Williams in your mock draft, that's fine. He could be a really good receiver, but you are punting the pick to next year because he ain't going to be able to get up to speed by the time the season is over. Right, so that's defensive tackle. Right, move on to the edges next. Obviously, so many edges, so we might keep this down to a few people here. But I mean, we've mentioned him already. We've done a few guys, but Trayvon Walker, another Georgia defender. He was the guy who really stood out here. I mean, people were calling it like an all-time performance that he made here. I mean, he ran a 4:51.40 at 272 pounds. He ran a 4:51, which is just absolutely crazy. I don't know if anyone that size has run it that fast before. It could be some sort of record. He had a 6:89 3-cone. He had a 4:32 shuttle. I mean, for an edge, these are just incredible times, and he's another one who's forced himself into the pick at number 2 conversation. And off the back of this, it's hard to argue against it.
Yeah, I see more people putting Walker at 2 than I have Davis because he is a phenomenal athlete. He could be a wrecking machine. Pitches a 10 in backfields. He's a supreme finisher as well, like I say. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to be effective, shuffling him up and down the line. Like I say, you don't pigeon him or hold in one position, so I think he'll be really good at next level. Like I say, he's another one as well that I'd prefer to trade back. But I know how highly Brad and Dan think about the trenches and building inwards, so it wouldn't surprise me if they've got an eye on one of those two guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, you just see the athleticism there, and it's just you move him up and down the line. He's a mismatch nightmare for whoever's going to get him. And I mean, you just have to go back and look at that Georgia defensive line this year. They strangled the life out of everybody, including some really good defenses. The SEC is not an easy place to play in, and they strangled the life out of pretty much everybody. Who else stood out for you out of the edge defense? Like I said, there's so many here. I've put a bet out for 8 edges going in the first round. No one's picked me up on it because they don't know whether it's going to happen or not. But there's just an absolute plethora of guys.
Yeah, there's some good guys. Like I say, Cameron Thomas didn't do too much. He did a very solid 24 bench reps, but we know how good he is as well. Like I say, how he had a phenomenal year. So I think he's still up there. Probably that sneaky second round kind of guy. Edges as well. Like I say, Karlaftis. I don't know, athletically he struggled a little bit, Karlaftis, but I still feel like he's gonna probably be middle to end of first round.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's going to go there. I know one person who didn't help himself was the Cincinnati edge? What's he called?
Yeah, Myjai Sanders.
Good God. I mean, what they say, I think they said he might have been ill or something, but he showed up at like less than 230 pounds, was it? His 40 was poor, the vertical wasn't great. You know, it was like he wasn't healthy at all, but he still went there and did it. And again, amongst this sea of edges this year, that's a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, someone said that, like I say, his weight is an issue. It fluctuates. Like I say, hasn't he played at like 250 before? And he's coming in at like 230. Like I say, it's pro football players should not be cutting weight. So if you did have sickness or a bug, but to come in like so heavy, but like say put up such an underwhelming 40, like something must be up. Like say, like he's gonna have to try somehow recover this if he's gonna be fit enough for a pro day. But yeah, that was in such a heavy class. Like say, he didn't do himself any favours because now there's going to be questions about him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of guys did well. I mean, Aiden did well. You can't deny that. Athletically, you know, I think we saw the things we wanted to see out of him. He tested well. He ran a really good 40. Nick Benito did really well from Oklahoma. He's a guy who doesn't get anywhere near enough love just because this edge class is so deep. But he's another guy who's on the periphery in the second where he could, you know, really do some damage for a team. I mean, there were a lot of good. Boy Maffei did really well as well. He's in that category. It's like all these guys at the end of the first, start of the second category showed up for the combine.
Yeah, Maffei is one of those guys as well, like you say, that could be a stand-up outside linebacker. Some people put him in that role. Or do you want to put his hand in the dirt and put him as an edge player? I think he's one of those guys that's in the periphery that will flip between a 3-4 and a 4-3. He's one of those hybrid guys. There's a few of them. Hutch, like I say, all the measurements taken as well. Wanting nearly 6'7". Yeah. He's absolutely ridiculous. I did not realise he was that big. I thought he was like 6'4", 6'5", but no, he's a mountain of a man. So I think he is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Hutchinson. I think the Jags are gonna pull a trigger on him, which makes me upset, like I say, but he just solidified everything we knew about him with a great workout.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm not showing my bias here because I really want Hamilton. I think just, you know, putting all the biases aside, I think the way that they've gone after that left side of their offensive line, they've brought Jordan back, they've put Scherf in there, you know, I think the need for 1-at-1 goes down. and you want an edge instead, and he's going to be the best edge there potentially. So I think there's a very good chance that he does go now. Speaking of edges, Ken's just in the chat. He says Flowers hasn't even made the list of best free agents. Guess everyone knew we were overpaying that guy. I mean, it's going to go down one of the worst contracts for the Lions ever, really, isn't it, Trey Flowers? Just as an aside.
Yes, in modern memory, yeah, it's going to go down as an absolute stinker.
And that's not an easy title to take, so that says everything about that there. Just before we go on to linebackers, I know the other one who didn't stand out for me, and we've mentioned him a few times, and he's a bit here, there, and everywhere. But Zachary Carter, the Florida edge, he didn't have a good combine.
No, I'm not convinced that he's a fully fledged edge anymore. Like I say, I think he may end up getting kicked inside to the defensive line because he didn't show the athletic traits that were required. Not very fast either, and a bit small. Like I say, he wasn't the biggest guy to begin with, was he? Really?
No. Yeah, it wasn't great for him, and yeah. I don't know what's going to go on with him now, but he's not done his stock any good, I don't think. Anyhow, we'll move it on. So we're getting near to the end of this now. We start with the linebackers. I'll let you take off with this one because the guy, one of probably who stood out the most. You've been championing him. He's small school again. He's from Montana State. He's called Troy Anderson, and he absolutely killed the combine.
He did, yeah. Like I say, I was really happy with how well he did. Like I say, he came in at a really good size. Like I say, he's got a big old 6'3", 6'4" frame, which I really enjoyed. But then to pull off the 440, 140, I never expected him to run that fast. Like I say, he was athletically super strong. And in the drills as well, he looked good. Like I say, the footwork was nice. The cones, the hips looked really fluid. For a guy that's really big, like I say, he is a big strapping young lad. So I was delighted for him. Like I say, I think I'd reach for him a little bit. I would take him in the second round. I think that's where you kind of happen to look at him now because I think he has got the potential to be that Mike backer. I think he can be that central backer. Now we run a 4-3. I think you could put him in the middle. You could put him in that and you could trust him. I'd say so. He did himself the world of good there. Like I say, some guys let themselves down, so I think he really made a big jump there.
Could you imagine that? A double dip at FCS at 32 and 34, come away with Watson and Anderson. That would be a statement and a half, wouldn't it, to go for two small school guys with those two picks?
It would, yeah. So I'd be totally fine with it as well.
Yeah, I can't disagree. You've mentioned him a lot. I've started watching the tape on him, and I absolutely agree. He's the potential to be what we really need on this team. And, I wouldn't be averse to picking him. I think for me it'd just be a positional problem and maybe a trade back thing just a little bit further to make me comfortable with it. So, intriguing. Definitely one who's on the he's flying under the radar, but he's going to soon come to prominence. I mean, the guy who stood out for me, and, I like this guy, and he's had a really good pro day because it's already gone by, but Leo Chanel, the Wisconsin linebacker, obviously there's him and there's Sanborn, the other guy there. These both coverage linebackers, by trade, that's what they do there in Wisconsin with their linebackers, but I mean, he sort of ticked all the boxes when it came to this. I mean, he's 250 pounds, he's a big guy, but his 40-yard dash, he ran a 4.53, he had a 40.5-inch vertical, so you want your linebacker going up, knocking balls down out the air. He had a 10'8" broad jump. He's a blitz-heavy guy. These are things you want to see from him. He's got the broad jump for the blitz. He's got the vertical for intercepting passes. He's got the speed to do whatever you need him to come after the tight ends, to come after running backs. He can keep up with them. I mean, for me, Leo, he's got to be one of the biggest movers up here. I think he's firmly put himself in round 2 territory now, and I would love to get him for the Lions if we were in the right position to get him.
Yeah, like I say, he's a big hulking guy, but he can really shift too. Like I say, he was part of a great team with Jack Sanborn. Like I say, a strong season, the numbers back up, as well as the Wisconsin defense played, because incredibly strong and physical defense as well. like I say, he's good in coverage, but he'll be excellent in run support as well. Big, strong guy. So this linebacker class did really well as well. Chad Muma, another one that's impressive. A bit slower in a straight line, only ran a 4.63, but that don't worry anyone because of how fluid his drills were as well. Like I said, these are all big guys. We've just named 3 guys that are all clocking 6'3" plus. This is a big linebacker class. Like I say, and it's looking really good.
Yeah, and I think they had a good combine all told, most of them. I mean, Christian Harris looked really good. He's been on my list since the start of the season. Brandon Smith, the Penn State linebacker, he moved well. You know what you're getting with a Penn State defender. They're another one who just churn out NFL level talent on there, and he looked really good. I know the one guy who did sort of get a little bit of hate from it. I don't, but it was mainly due to his size. I know Nakobe Dean. I know we mentioned all the Georgia guys, but he weighed in, I think, at 229 pounds. He was 5'11", a little on the short side. Can you see that affecting his stock very much? I mean, he didn't test either, which didn't help with all these guys around him who did and put up really good numbers. But I mean, is it something to be concerned about, the size?
Not that I don't like it. It could cost him the first round. I think it could drop him into early second round. Like I said, the fact as well, if he'd have decided to work out and alleviate those issues of size, that would have been great. Like I say, because size was an issue for a few guys as well. Like I say, there's another guy that really disappointed me that clocked in as well. Jojo DeMann, that's supposed to be the best coverage backer. He only came in at 6'1", and he ran a 4.62. He ran a really slow 40-yard dash, and this is a guy that does not play the run. He is up for coverage. He takes tight ends. He picks up receivers, former safety. Only had a 34.5 inch. Only had a 9'11" broad jump. So for a guy that will primarily be an inside linebacker, but he's a coverage guy, like I say, I don't think he did himself any favours either. I wasn't high on him to begin with. I think you need to put him back at safety. I just don't see him playing linebacker at the next level.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned this one before. I was high on Jojo at one point because I think we needed a coverage linebacker, something chronic, and he represented to me maybe one of the best coverage linebackers there were, but he's just tested badly. He's not done well in his drills, and it's like, yeah, he's pushed himself way down there now. Both Wisconsin guys are above him for me now, and Chanel especially is way in front, so yeah, it was a shame that he was like that. Ken in the chat says Chad Muma. He's been rising. Yeah, Chad Moom is very popular amongst Lions fans, and I can see why. He's just hitting form at the right time, and they say he had a really good combine there. So agree, and there's a good chance we could see him there. He also says if Hutch goes number 1, we need to trade back. Well, I think we need to trade back even if Hutch does go 1. But have we got a dance partner? We don't know. With so many guys,
I can't
maybe.
see it, no.
No, I think.
Say all these quarterback moves just kill the draft stock, kill the trade.
Yeah, exactly. Deshaun's going to be the next one to fall before the draft. There's going to be a lot of movement there. I think we're going to struggle unless somebody near us gets fleeced. If Carolina don't get Watson, will they trade us a load of future draft capital to move up? Although I prefer the picks this year. No idea. One Bradford is in the chat again. He says biggest losers in FA are the Jags. Probably agreed. We can talk about that in a moment when we've done with this. So that's the linebackers. We're on to the last couple of groups now. We've got cornerbacks first, and again, FCS come into the party here.
Mr. McCullum.
Yeah, and this is another one of yours who you've been mentioning a few times. The Sam Houston State cornerback, Zion McCullum. He benefited because he was one of the only guys who did all the drills there. He did the 3-cone, he did the short shuttle. I don't think any of the others, if I remember rightly, did it. But he had a 6:48 3-cone. He had a 3:94 second shuttle. I mean, they're both. I think Kent Math Bomb said they're both
elite. Everything.
Yeah, they were 97 and 99 percentile in, amongst corners ever. He ran a 4.33 in his 40. He had a 39.5-inch vertical and an 11-foot broad jump. This guy's 200 pounds. He's 6'2". He has all the developmental traits you need to make a damn good NFL corner. And he went for broke in this, did all the trials, and by God, did it pay off for him.
Oh yeah, the 9-inch hands as well, so he's got a solid hand size. He got a 9.99 RAS. Like I say, that makes him one of the best corners to test pretty much ever. Like I say, it makes him one of the best. He has got everything you need. Like I say, put 10 more pounds on his frame, and I expect him to keep that speed and that athleticism. And I think you've got the makings of an outside NFL cornerback. Like I say, he comes from a big school as well. Like say, Sam Houston State are a big time baller in the FCS. So he's got that experience of playing in the playoffs, national title runs. So he's very experienced in that sense as well. Like I say, it's so hard to judge where he's going to go. Like I say, you don't want to, like I say, everyone look at Obi Melifonwu jumped up to the second round because he had an exact same kind of thing and it didn't really pan out for him. So people will probably be a bit put off by that because he had all the same kind of measurables as well. But no, I think McCullum's done himself a world of favours because some corners did really struggle.
They did. But one other guy who did himself a lot of favours, we mentioned him on the pod yesterday. I had the pleasure of doing the rundown on him. Tariq Woolen, UTSA cornerback, outside corner. Again, got all the developmental traits you need there to have a starting outside corner in the NFL. And he's probably a bit further along in his development than McCullum is. But again, just another guy who he looks so smooth when he's doing his drills. The hips are good, the movement's good, the change of direction speed is good. And, he's been part of a very successful team this year. And UTSA have had, 2 drafted players ever. This isn't a school that is known for developing NFL talent, and he's shone out there, and he's going to get a high draft pick somewhere. And the Combine just further reinforced that.
Yeah, no, he looks really good. Like I say, we mentioned, played both ways. You saw every bit of that size and athleticism. Like you say, someone would probably look at him and think, I'd love to try and see him play receiver again, but he's found a home at cornerback. He's got that savviness that he backpedals just as well as he breaks out of a route or release. So everything he's ever done at receiver has only made him better and more athletic, I think, as a cornerback. So someone is definitely going to take a punt on him because he's got all the tools, he's got everything to work with. Now he just needs some practice and he just needs a bit of nurturing.
Exactly. Yeah, can't really say more to that. And you mentioned some guys had bad days, and you mentioned this on the pod yesterday. No one had a worse day at the Combine than Kyler Gordon, the Washington cornerback.
And the Washington corners have not had a good draft period, fortunately.
No, him, McDuffie, both struggled. It was a shame really because both of them, a lot of expectation there, but both of them just really struggled for whatever reason, wouldn't they? And they've got a lot of proving to do now.
Yeah, like I say, both came in undersized, both 5'11"-ish. Like I say, under 200 pounds, which puts you at a disadvantage already. Like Washington play a heavy man scheme, so he's pretty much a carbon copy of Trent. Like I say, strong man press corner. Like I say, not great high end speed, so you don't want to give too much of a cushion. So didn't work out incredibly well. So it's going to be hard to see anyone just falling in love with either of them. They're very scheme heavy. It's going to be after a team, like I say, you don't want a team that plays loads of zone or anything like that, or deep coverage. Like I say, you want these in a man scheme. So they might go as a pair. Like I say, if someone wants 2 corners to play a good scheme together, then you might get them both as a dual package in one of the middle rounds.
Yeah, and the trouble for them is they're in a convoluted cornerback class. A lot of potentially really good guys who are not going to go high, but they're going to clog up the middle rounds of the draft, and if you don't perform well, you're going to get pushed down. I mean, I was watching McCreary today at his pro day doing his stuff, and you can just tell there's a level apart from them. He just looks so much better, and there's other guys like that as well, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. And now finishing it off, we go on to the safeties, and again, for me, safeties had a really strong showing at the Combine, but I think no more so than Lewis Sign. You mentioned him already, but I think people have slept on him a little bit, and I know he had a little bit of a I mentioned it yesterday on the podcast. People saying, maybe has he underwhelmed a little this season there, but he lost his partner in crime at safety before the season began. He's had a lot of responsibility put on his shoulders, and he locked down that field when anyone tried to throw on them if they got the opportunity to in the SEC, which is no mean feat there. But I mean, just all his measurables: a 4.37 40, 36.5 vertical, 11 foot 1 broad jump. I think it's, you could say he's one of the most explosive safeties at the combine that he was there with, and he's really put himself in first round consideration on the back of it.
Yeah, he's nipping at the heels of Brisker to be safety too. Like you say, they're 2A and 2B. Some teams will prefer the explosiveness of Scene to the aggressiveness of Brisker. Like say, he offers maybe more as a free safety. Brisker projects more as a strong safety. So if you're looking for someone, I said yesterday, he's played strong, he's played two-man, he's played single high, but he can also play slot corner as well. So he will do all the jobs at next level. So if you're looking for someone to maybe be more versatile, I think Scene's going to go at the end of the first. I think he might go before Brisker too. So he could be the second safety off the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, I've just had a retweet from Stanley Berryhill III. The Arizona receiver.
Arizona receiver.
Getting some weird ones this week. I'm getting a lot of love off Sterling Weatherford's dad, and now I've just had a retweet from him.
Yeah, Tim's like to view my tweets too.
I love Tim. I hope Sterling comes just so we can get Tim on the pod. He seems like he could be a very fun guy to have on there. But yeah, in terms of the rest of the safeties, I mean, Jalen Petra, I thought, people were like meh with Jalen Petra, but it might just have been me, but I thought he looked incredibly good in his drills. I thought he moved very well. I thought his hands were damn good. His location of the ball in the air, great. His turn of movement was really good. I thought he had a really good combine, but I mean, feel free to disagree.
One of the drills and everything looked really good. He was smooth, he was fluid, the hands, like you say. I think they're more important than how fast you can go in a straight line or how hard you can or high you can lift a barbell, things like that. So I think the drills that counted and mattered for him, he did really well, tested well out there, like you say. The vertical and the broad jump for a safety for me, they're not exactly that important. I don't really hold them that high in esteem. So everything he did really well. And I know he can generate turnovers because we've seen him so well this year, like you say, gets interceptions, he forces fumbles because he's got great hands, he punches, he rips balls out. So I think he still did himself really good. I think he's going to be a steal for someone in the second round.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, anyone else safety? I mean, I do want to mention him, but we've talked about this. Tom did a wonderful rundown on him yesterday. Kyle Hamilton. This 40 time doesn't matter a jot, does it?
No, the 40 time doesn't bother me in the slightest.
No,
he's a big, tall guy. He runs upright, so he's not the most aerodynamic running in a straight line for me. So it don't really bother me.
No, and during the drills, he looked a class above everybody else. Quite frankly, the way he moved. I mean, the hips for a guy his size are just like as fluid as you're gonna get.
Oh yeah, he chops and changes direction on a dime, like you say, click of the fingers. He can flip from left to right.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else from the safety class you want to mention before we round out the combine preview? I mean, the other one I will mention is Nick Cross, the Maryland safety.
The Maryland, yeah, he looks pretty good.
He ran the quickest 40 of any safety. He ran a bloody... He was in the 4.3s, wasn't he? I think he was 4.34.
Yeah, he's just over 6'1" as well, so he's not even small. So he's well built. I think he's going to be nipping at the heels, like you say. He's going to be one of those guys that could go early second, or could go middle of the third. You don't really know, but did look good.
Between Chigosium and Nick, you've got two very good developmental projects coming out of Maryland, so they're ones to watch out on. So,
Yusuf Corker, I did like him, and I mentioned him before the combine and the workout, but he struggled a little bit.
Yeah, didn't bode well for him. I saw a little bit, but what I did see wasn't entirely impressed with. I agree there. Anyone else you want to mention? Because I think that's gone through everything. Anything else about the combine you want to mention before we crack on?
No. As I say, the Georgia, was it the San Diego State punter? Was it Matt Ariaza?
Oh, yes.
he had a really good combine. He did everything really well. People definitely going to get drafted him.
I saw, because the Rams released Johnny Hecker today, and for some reason I was seeing his name in the comments, like, we want to draft him, we want to draft him. I'm like, what the? Oh yeah, he was the punter who did pretty well. It's like, okay, they've already chosen their replacement. I think special teams are going to get drafted more in future. I think people are realizing the value of you get a clutch kicker over a development, tackle in the 7th round. You'd take a clutch kicker, wouldn't you? There's the age-old question.
Oh yeah.
There's the age-old question that if you knew a kicker was going to be clutch before a draft, you could draft him as high as you want, and it would be worth it.
Oh yeah, because we saw this season how many games came down to kicks and missed kicks.
Yeah, no double doinks, Bears fans, but hey ho, there were a lot. So, I think you're going to see a lot of special teamers drafted this year, as opposed to the development guys. You can get them in undrafted free agency as well if you want to. The kickers, they're a lot hard to come by. So yeah, that's everything in regards to our combine review there. Obviously, it was a good week. Some people showed out, some people didn't, but that's what it's there for. There to give those an opportunity to really put themselves on the stage. That is the second to last second to last stop on the way to the NFL draft. The last stop is Pro Days. We have mentioned these. We're going to move on to those in a minute. I'll just divert into the chat though a little bit. There's a bit of chat going on in there. One bride said the biggest loser in free agency are the Jags. I mean, are there any of those Jags deals you like that they've made so far? Even Evan Ingram at like 3 years, 30 million seems a bit expensive.
I don't dislike the players. I just dislike the contracts. I don't say they're necessarily losers because they've just been the most active. They've just been stung by the curse of they've been seen coming and been taken for a bit of a ride. I expect the Jags to be much better next year than they were this year. Just for getting rid of Urban Meyer. Like I say, another year of I think Darryl Bevell's still there, isn't there?
Yeah,
I think he'll serve the offensive coordinator. I think him and Trevor Lawrence will be much better next year. So I think these will all probably play their part. I think working on their offensive line, I think Brandon Scherf's a good signing because their offensive line is usually a piece of crap. That's where they focus.
Yeah, he got 3 years, 53 million, I think it was, which is a lot. But I mean, he's a perennial Pro Bowler, so you know, those are the kind of guys you can spend the money on. So maybe in terms of value for contract, they are losers in there. Chrome goes as Bob Quinn, the GM. He could well be, but I don't even think Bob Quinn would have negotiated that Christian Kirk deal. I think it's absolutely horrendous and something that even he would have thought twice about there. It is total insanity, as he says. One Brad says Holmes has been taking W's this free agency. I agree. I think all the moves he's made are incredibly good moves. They're sensible to our timeline that we're building on. They're not risking the cap in the future. And yeah, I do think he's done well so far. He's resisted the temptation to really go and wreck this thing, because he could easily panic and spend big bucks on someone who's not going to pan out. That's what Quinn did, and look where it got us. Ken mentions the Raymond deal. Yep, Raymond, 2 years, up to $9 million. Still waiting for the contract details there. I'm hoping that it's not much guaranteed money and a lot of it is incentivized. And one Brad thought he goes, I think the Chargers are having a good free agency. JC
Jackson, yeah.
Chargers are downright stealing free agency. I said the other day they need to stop being allowed to sign players. Khalil Mack, JC Jackson, on there. Who was the other one they got today? It was they got another defender in on free agency today. Who did they get? Oh, I'm missing out. They've got 3-star defenders they've signed here. And it's just like, it's not fair, the amount of money that they're spending. But
still won't win anything.
Benefits of a rookie contract. They're taking advantage of Herbert's rookie contract. They're just going all in, putting a star team around him. Mike Williams got $60 million. They're investing. They invested in Corey Linsley last year. They gave him a ton of money. So yeah, they're one of the all-in teams along with the Broncos. But I'd agree, they've.
I still feel like they'll disappoint though. That's the odd thing.
Yeah, it's just, can they get over these game management issues? Game management seems to be a big problem there. But there's no excuse now. I know they're in a stacked division, but they've got a hell of a quarterback. They've got the players around him. They've invested in that defense something freakishly. There's no reason that defense shouldn't be good this year. I agree. They really should be doing that there. They should be doing the business. Chrome agrees with you. He says Urban Meyer was a train wreck. Agreed. Zach J is in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Going back to the whole Holmes taking W's, he says, well, except for Trinity Benson. And to be fair, I completely forgot about Trinity again now. I mean, what the hell do we do with Trinity now that Raymond's back? We got a stacked room. No room there. There's maybe another guy coming in. Ah, shit. Sorry, I lost the stream. Bollocks.